to navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston Senior Care, your one-stop shop for everything senior care and senior living in the greater Houston area. Visit findhoustonseniorcare.com today. And now, here's your host, Catherine Watson. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Life After 50 show. I'm excited today to be with somebody. He's an author and really an expert in helping people. So the author of the Fix Yourself Handbook, and I'm just going to put that up on the screen so you can see the book. It's using the process way of life to transform your life into a happy, healthy journey. And he says that he can help you fix yourself so you can become happier and more productive. Now, who doesn't want that, right? So Faust, if you would you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to write this book and just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Faust Ruggiero. I am the author of the Fix Yourself Handbook. I've been counseling people in private practice for almost 40 years. I've been setting up this kind of a program, the Process Way of Life, for the past 20, and I put it into a book format last year. So that's what we're talking about today, how we use these processes to enhance the scope of our lives.
Okay, great. So let's talk about that. Let's kind of dive a little deeper into that. What is the process way of life? What is that exactly? And how is it going to make my world happier and more productive? Because I certainly want that.
It is a program based on the processes we use in our lives. It's very simple things, trust and love and dignity and setting boundaries and people pleasing and all those kinds of things. And I put them into a program. So my goal is to help people come to a state of at least move in a direction of what I call internal balance, which is really taking your physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual attributes and try to get them to work together. The process is, if we use them properly, they will get to the point where they help us balance a little bit, get a little bit more tranquility in our lives, get clarity of thought, increase our emotional intelligence, if you will, that type of thing. So it just gets us to the point that we live life more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know of anybody who wouldn't want that. This has been a year of the records. I think 2020 will definitely go down in history. People have gone through a lot of change, a lot of extra stress that dealing with things that they've never had to deal with before. The political climate has been quite challenging this year and will continue to be so. So there's a lot going on in people's lives today. What would you say would be the first step? How would somebody get started? Of course, they want to buy your book. They definitely need to get the book because that's going to help you. But what's the first step to beginning to work with the Process Way of Life program?
Like in any program that a person chooses to use, you've got to develop a starting spot. You got to decide, where do I start? And what I always tell people is the first way to go is to, as I call it, take your life off autopilot. Stop just following the crowd. Look at the routines that you're using that aren't so healthy, and just stop for a moment and then define what it is that you're looking for and where you'd like to go. Then at that point, coming into the program becomes very easy, because I start people pretty much in the same place, but I tailor it to meet whatever their needs are. And where we're going to start right away is to get your life at a point where we're going to slow everything down, so I can give you enough time to look at it and assess where you are. We go very, very fast in this life, and we like that. And that's a part of the problem. So I take everyone and I just say, let's just slow down a minute. Let's assess where you are, and then we formulate a plan to move forward.
Yeah. So let's dive into that autopilot thing, because I think that is critical to the core of this program. And I think so many people are on autopilot and maybe don't recognize that they are. Can you give us some examples of people that you've talked to that are clearly on autopilot and didn't really realize it?
Let's just take the issues in our world right now. We're talking about the coronavirus. Go back to last March and the way everyone dealt with this. It was all emotional. It was all everyone doing the same thing, to the point that we were out hoarding. We were buying things. We
Hmm.
don't even know why. And I remember doing one of the interviews, and someone said, "Well, how would you do this better?" And I said, "Well, if you slow down and get your emotions out of it, you're going to realize that even if you have got quarantined, you have family and friends that are going to bring supplies right to your house. You don't need to go
Hmm.
out and rip the toilet paper off the shelf." You
Yeah.
know? So everyone started doing that. No one questioned it. Everyone felt that it was an absolutely appropriate way to go, because we don't know what's going to happen here, and we have to have all these supplies. And I remember going at the stores, and people were, 3, 4 carts deep, and they were, and then they went into debt on all of this stuff. We're seeing it with the protests going
Hmm.
on in the country. Not that the core issues aren't valid, because they are, but
Hmm.
the way we're approaching that, when I interview people and I say, "Okay, you're protesting. What are you protesting for?" I got very general comments back, and no one really had the core issues in perspective, because we got so into following what's going on. And we do that with just about everything we do. And social media is real good at helping us, keep
Yes.
that going.
It is. It is. I live in Houston, Texas, and we are plagued with hurricanes, and we see the same thing happen every time one comes into the Gulf. And, people start getting a little bit panicky and wondering, oh gosh, do I need to run to the store before the stores run out of stuff? Because we've been there when, maybe the stores are not restocked for, weeks, maybe months sometimes afterwards. And there's this big panic thing going on, and it's crazy. So I understand it's kind of a herd mentality where everybody's just following and nobody's really thinking. And that's what you're talking about when you're talking about autopilot, being on autopilot.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Really, what's
Yeah.
happening is emotion takes over, and we don't use our intellects enough. We don't take a step back and say, "Okay, this is what I'm dealing with. Let me look at it. Let me get all the information I need. Then let me put a little bit of a plan together to move forward, or at least ask myself what I want to do next." We're not doing
Hmm.
that. We are seeing it. We're going. Our emotions are at a peak, and we just keep on plunging in further and further, and we get to the point that we're not assessing the information anymore. And so
Hmm.
what we do is, because we're not making good decisions, so we allow the crowd to make the decisions, and we follow along, feeling as though, well, we're not at a step, and we have some kind of security around us, but it's not there.
Right, right. It's a false sense of security. Yeah, yeah. You also used an example in the book about a gentleman that, he gets up in the morning, he brushes his teeth, he does his stuff, he goes to work, he does his work all day, he comes home after 8 hours, he maybe plays with the kid for a little while, he eats his dinner, he gets on his computer and does something, and then he goes to sleep, and then he gets up the next morning and does it all over again. And this show is Life After 50. And I think after 50, a lot of people start, or some people start to wake up and say, wait a minute, what have I been doing for the last 30, 40 years? And is this making sense? And so to those viewers that are watching this, that are in that place and they're going, okay, I've been in this rut for all these years. And now I'm starting to question that rut. Would your book be helpful to them? And how
Absolutely.
so?
Absolutely. And that particular example is just my way of saying, look, every day you get up and you don't question your world. You don't
Hmm.
look at what options are available to you. And that's the real, the sad part of this. We all have usually so many options, but we become complacent and we become very secure, locked in what I call comfort zones. We like to keep them there and not be challenged. It's a very easy way to live life. But then when you get to the point that we're getting to our age, we look at it and we say, what have I done? Well,
Hmm.
as I'm looking forward, what am I going to do? And I just tell people, challenge them a little bit at a time. Reverse the way, the way you're doing things. If you used to come home and sit down and watch television, don't do that. Go out, and if you can, go outside and do something in the yard, or read a book, or keep changing things up so your routine changes, and you're really locked still in your comfort zone, but you're changing minor parts of it. That gets you started to get off autopilot. That's your
Hmm.
own personal little way to start it, because from there bigger changes can come, and more options become available to you.
Yeah. And life is about options. It really is.
It is
And
absolutely.
when you start enjoying and seeing those different options, I think it makes it so much sweeter.
Hmm.
A lot of our viewers too. I think we talked a little bit about this before the show. A lot of our viewers have found themselves over 50, and suddenly they are caring for a loved one. It may be their spouse, it may be their aging parent, but they're caring for somebody. And sometimes the caregiving is intense. A lot of the people are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, different types of dementia, that the person that they care for needs full and total care. And they may be the designated caregiver, and they're consumed with doing this job. And they feel like a lot of times there are no options. So, what would you say to somebody like that? And how can they get out of the rut that they often feel like they've found themselves in?
That again presents itself as such a difficult time because there's so much emotion involved in it. It's a loved
Yes,
one, and particularly, if it's a close family member, if it's a child who has been in an accident, or has a debilitating disease, or a parent who now is hitting those stages where dementia is presenting itself. We look for, we watch them begin to go down, and there's a sadness that takes hold of us. And what I tell people is, we're all going to meet a demise one way or another. It's how you're going to handle that. If you work with your emotions all the time, you're going to really burn out pretty quick. I tell people, the most important part of being a caregiver is taking care of yourself. That always comes first. And we talk about that, whether it's parenting or anything else in our lives.
mhm,
If we, the person supplying all of that, aren't taking care of our lives, the care we give to the next person will suffer, and we will really burn out along the way. So I always tell them, make sure you have some time for yourself. It's an hour a day, maybe. That's fine. When the person is napping, go do something for you. What caregivers do is, when the other person doesn't need them, now they go around the house and start taking care of business that they
exactly.
feel they couldn't do.
Hmm.
So they make their entire life a chore.
Hmm. And
And
I've caught myself doing that, Faust. I have. I was caregiver for my mom and then my mother-in-law, and I caught myself doing things like that. Oh, I've got some free time. Let me take care of the bills, or let me take care of this. And I finally had to stop one day and say, no, I'm going to take care of me. I'm just going to take some time off. And what happened was I became happier. And who doesn't want a happy caregiver around, right?
right,
I mean, if I get to that point where I need a full time caregiver, I want them to be happy. I don't want them to be stressed out and burned out and not happy. So I think that's really important.
it is, because if we're happier in our own lives, then the care we give to that person becomes a much more harmonious, or much more giving type of. They feel real good about what they're getting. But the person who's being cared for can look at us and say, "Are they happy doing this? Or am I a chore for them? Am I a burden on them?" But if
Mhm.
if we come in and we're happy, and it's, "Hey, mom, and look at what's going on today," and we're real happy, they get that. And
They
it's
do.
reciprocity in there, because if they get that, they typically become easier people to deal with. Again, some
Absolutely.
of the dementias are a little difficult. We have, the angry folks and the people that
Mhm.
are misperceiving things. But for the most part, if we go in a good frame of mind, we make that situation just a little better. And us doing that means we have to take care of ourselves.
Mhm. It absolutely does. Yeah. And how you present yourself to the person you're caring for makes all the difference in the world. If you come in doom and gloom and down on life, they feel that. They pick up on that energy that you're sending out. They're going to pick up on that. They may not be able to communicate with you, to speak to you, but they do pick up on your emotions and how you're feeling. And you can't hide that. You can try to put on a fake smile, but it's a fake smile.
Mhm.
It's not going to work. And somebody with dementia is going to pick up on that, and they're going to know. They're going to look at your eyes. They're going to be able to tell. So, yeah, I think it's critical. I agree with you. So, you talked about the foundation of the program. Let's go over that just a little bit more.
The foundation of the program really stresses again the processes. And when I get people into the program, the first four processes, what I call the opening process bookends, if you will, are the ones where we talk about, once you've taken life off autopilot, I talk about slowing the pace down. You
Mm-hmm.
can't go fast and look at information and put facts together. You just can't. You got to slow down just a bit. And I tell people how we can do that. I give examples in the book. I talk about, and it's one of the real hallmarks of the program, what I call I over E, which is intellect over emotion. And I tell people it's fine to be able to emote, but you should emote over over a healthy factual information. What we tend to do is just explode, or we get consumed with the emotion of a situation, and then we don't give our minds enough time to just simply say, what am I looking at, and what do I need to do here? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling them, save your emotions for later if you can, and just get your brain into looking at the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about that factual information. That's the next step in the process, learning how to put facts together, fact finding, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get them to the point that they understand how to look at facts, because the truth is always the truth. The facts are the facts, and
Mm-hmm.
they never change. And we can put whatever spin on those that we want to. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
get them into those particular items. And that's the foundation. Once I get them to the point that they think that way, they slow down, they get the facts, they put them in order, they start putting a plan together. You can address any situation in life if you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to do those things. That's how I start everyone.
Right, right. So what came to my mind when you were talking there, thinking about the caregiver and their role, the truth is, I may care for my mom who has dementia, but the fact is that I have choices about how I
Absolutely.
make that care happen. And I have choices about how I go about my day and how I'm going to feel. Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to get your emotion, and there's a lot of emotion in that.
Oh boy, is
And
there.
it's not, it's interesting. It's not just the emotion between the caregiver and the person who's receiving the care. There's other factors, and we all know we have those family members who should be there helping, and they're never there.
And they're never there.
And they
Yeah.
shoot in once in a while, and they want to do everything their way, and then they shoot back out. And so now
Hmm.
we have this anger component in there. Again,
You
another
bet.
emotion to deal with. Not only am I angry that my life has stopped and I have to be here, even though I love this person, I have this sibling or these siblings, whoever, and they do everything in their power not to come around. They always have an excuse. They're
Yeah.
working overtime and something with the kids and whatever may be,
And they've
and
got to go on vacation and
whatever it may be,
yeah.
right? And they're so nice to come in and maybe give us 1 week a year where we get to go on
Hmm.
vacation, and they say, well, I stayed with mom that whole week. Well, that's
Right.
great. I had the other 51. You know, there's a lot of anger, and then what you get is you get siblings who are arguing.
Hmm.
And that's again, and then you have the finances that go along with it, because someone's footing all the bills for all
Right.
these things. And then
Yeah.
you're making all the calls to whether it's senior centers or met the doctors. So
Mhm.
it is a full-time job.
It is a full-time job.
So,
And
but
then
don't,
some.
we don't want to work against
Mhm.
ourselves. That's the key. We don't want to bring more emotion into it. And if you're going to sit with mom and it's going to be the better part of the day, if you're going to use the rest of your energy to be angry at your sister or your brother who's not doing their job, by the end of the day, you're spent. And then you're
Yeah.
going to get up and do it tomorrow the same way. And
Mhm.
if it's dementia and those types of things, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Right,
And
right.
then you put them in the car and you take them to the doctor's office and you sit in the doctor's office for an hour and a half for the
And you're
doctor.
stewing while you're
And
sitting there about your brother that's not paying attention, or your sister, or whoever it is.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
yeah,
there has to be a way that we look at these things, and again, the facts are the facts. If the brother is not going to come over and help you, and that's going to be the case, you can fight with him forever. But the fact is the fact, and somewhere along the line, you're going to look at some other options. There may be friends,
mhm,
there may be cousins and children, whoever. You look at all your options, and
mhm.
caregivers get to a point where they lock themselves in one role, and then they're almost unwilling to look at options because they're
Right.
angry.
Yeah, they're
And those
angry.
things you
Yeah.
definitely want to get out of the mix.
I think sometimes too the martyr role plays a part in that.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah,
You actually tell inside, you're telling yourself how much you're doing, and the more you do, the better you feel about yourself.
that's
But
right.
the more you do, it's also the worse you feel about the conditions of your life. So one balances the other out, and you're still back at square one, always.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I saw a post on Facebook just the other day where somebody was talking about how his mother-in-law had cared for her husband and his wife who was sick with leukemia, and all while she was dealing with cancer, and she took everybody to all the doctor's appointments, and and he labeled all the different things she did and made her out to be this hero. And I think that serves no one when you do that. It really serves nobody, because that's putting her on a pedestal, but she's not taking care of herself. That's why she's got the cancer, most likely. She's activated those cancer genes because she's been so stressed trying to take care of everybody and trying to do everything for everybody. Um, and that's just not a healthy way for anybody to live, and it really doesn't serve anybody at all,
You
in
know,
my opinion.
I'm a very practical person, and when we look at situations, I gather all the information. Then I try to tell people this is what you need to do to fix that. When I deal with caregivers, I've always said the same thing. Before you go into this, you better have that family meeting, and
Yeah.
everyone better know what their responsibilities are. And then you got to be real good at holding people accountable to those. I do a
Hmm.
chapter in the book on setting boundaries. And I always tell people you can set all the boundaries in the world, but if you're not willing to defend them, then
Hmm.
they fall by the wayside. So I tell people, have that meeting. And even if you didn't have it in the beginning and you're watching this and you're saying, we didn't do that, get everybody in and say, okay, this is what we're doing.
Hmm.
And I need you here to do this, and I need you here to do this. I may have the bulk of it, but you are going to give me some breaks here and there. And
Yeah.
this is, and everyone needs to agree with that, and then everyone needs to be held accountable. And you're right, that martyr thing is huge, and and
Hmm.
it's a trap you don't realize you're in. And
Right.
and so don't even go there. Don't be
Hmm.
the hero for mom or dad, because there is no such thing. Ask yourself, do you want to
Right.
be a hero or do you want to be happy? And
Right.
and
And if you asked your parent, they would say they want you to be happy.
absolutely.
Absolutely. I know that's the way I feel with my son. You know, I don't want him to be a hero. I want him to be happy. I want
That's
him to enjoy his life. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you why do you call it a process journey? Just because we're following these different processes?
two reasons. That's one. The other thing is I look at life as a journey. And I even do a chapter, a journey versus destination living. In our
Hmm.
world, we tend to define happiness by getting here, getting there, having
Right.
this. We set destinations, and when we get there, And we'll even say, if this just happens, I'll be that much happier. Meanwhile, all these moments in your life are going by day, hour by hour. And I think we need to be content and happy in our journey day to day. We shouldn't have to have grandiose destinations. You know, we're doing this interview. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a wonderful time doing it. And I shouldn't be saying, well, okay, I got to do this interview today and it's going to take this hour and I got to get all this done and I have so much to do and I can't wait till it's over. I should be enjoying this the whole time we're doing this. And that should pertain to all our entire life. That's our journey. There's a timeline at the end. I'd hate to say that, well, I was really happy in my life because I did those 2 things every year. And the rest of the time, what? So
Right.
it's a happiness that should be part of a lifetime journey that stretches through all the moments of our lives.
I totally agree. I've known a number of couples, unfortunately, that when they retired, they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and something happened. By the time they finally got there, one of them passed away. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And I think everybody out there, or a lot of people out there, have heard similar stories. And they missed out on so much living that could have been happening because they were scrimping and saving and working hard and putting in lots of extra hours so that they could hit this milestone, this destination, as you call it, and they missed the whole journey along the way.
And I tell people that, okay, you're planning for a journey. I don't care if it's your vacation that's going to happen 6 months down the road. When that 6 months come, you may or may not get there. When you get there, it may or may not be what you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So, and it's fine to plan for those things, but I think that the thinking should be, along the way, I have these 6 months that are going to occur before I get there. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to look at my options. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to do all those things all along the way. When I get there, I'm not going to have these huge expectations of what that looks like. When I get to that, I'll live that one day at a time also. And it's just a much easier way to live life. We put so much, the watchword here is expectations. We have all the expectations because we're told that things can be guaranteed in life. And I'm not sure where that thinking comes from, but because it's not true. So
I think 2020 is busting that belief.
Well, boy,
Don't you? I think it's kind of busting that belief out the water right now. So, we're coming to the end. I want to talk about your book because I think it's so important. And again, I'm going to put it up on the screen for just a minute. But while it's up on the screen, tell people why it's different from all the other self-help books out there. There's a million of them out there. Why is yours different? And why should people consider purchasing your book?
When I designed the book, I decided that I wanted to do some things that I couldn't find anywhere else in the self-help literature. I wanted it to be a book that could be applied to any problem at all, not just, self-help books tend to be specific to particular problems. I wanted it to be a program that could be applied to any problem that came up in a person's life. That's very different. The other thing I wanted to do was to do shorter chapters with a specific problem, all the information that is necessary to understand that problem, and then the exact steps that are necessary to address that issue. And as opposed to 2 or 3 issues, again, self-help books tend to do, mine is set up with 36 different chapters, all addressing a different problem. The other thing that makes it a little different is that it can be used as a reference book. As an example, if I'm people pleasing and I find myself doing it again, even after I read the book, I can go right back to that chapter, the 3 or 4 or 5 pages, and then at the end see exactly where I went off and exactly what I have to do. So it's always there as a reference book also.
And that falls right into the fact that it's a process.
Right.
Going through life and going on this journey is a process. And so that's great to have a tool like that that you can refer back to, because we are going to make changes in our lives, but then there'll be things that happen in the life and we find ourselves reverting back to some old behaviors that we know doesn't work for us. We know it's not healthy and we know it's not working for us, and they can go right back. I like the idea that it's broken down into chunks. I like things that are broken into smaller pieces that we can digest easier, I think.
Yeah, it's the way
So
the
I,
human mind works. You know,
yeah,
we want to take one step at a time, and we want to be able to and again, it's set up so that you start from the beginning, and then you progress to get to the point that you get to the higher levels of the program. So but it's easier to get there because again, it's 3 or 4 or 5 pages, and everything is set out, and with a here's where we're going to the end, which is now do this.
yeah. Great, great. Okay, we are about at the end of the show. I'm going to go ahead and put your website up there in case you want to go and visit and find out more about Faust and what he has to offer. He actually told me he's got a new book in the works, so he's going to be coming out with another book. But you want to go out and possibly get this book because I think it'll help. I haven't read the whole book yet. I've started it, and I really like the ease of it. It's an easy book to, like I said, digest, and I can see how it could be a great reference book.
So, Catherine, if the readers go to the website, there is a page there that gives the chapter outlines. All 36 chapters are outlined. So if you think it's something that you want to look into, the website's dedicated to the book, and you can see all the chapter outlines there and know what you're going to be getting into. So really, you'll like it or you
Absolutely.
won't, but you'll find it right there.
And do they purchase the book on your website, or do they purchase it where?
There are links on the website, but primarily people are getting it from Amazon, Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble, retailers.
That's good. Okay. All right. And I've also put up his Facebook page. All of this information, if you're listening to the podcast later and you don't see the visual, it will be in the show notes. So you can read the show notes and get the links there. But Faust, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here this morning. I know you're very busy, and we really appreciate having you on the show.
It's been a wonderful experience. Thanks for asking me.
All right, great. Everybody, have a wonderful day. And we'll be back again next week with the Life After 50 show and another guest that will help you on your journey. Have a great one. Welcome to the Life After 50 show, helping you navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston.